carried.
That
And people are already asking to enter. But we can have a minute more to build the tension. What's the last count, Benjamin?
270 people in the script.
Now, do you think, are they all from within country or are they from all over?
All over. We have people from Europe, US, Central and Latin America in general, but majority will be based on our research from the webinars, will be students likely, and professionals from the area, because we had hosted people from Argentina also, so their own networks are being broadcasting the advertisement. So we know we have a chunk of people from Argentina, also from Guatemala. We had a guy that is from the university there, but works in Boulder. So it's going to be a mix, but mainly students and mainly Latin Americans, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting some pressure to open the webinar. So if you're good to go, I'm gonna get the thing live and we're gonna start getting. Benja, voy a abrir el seminario por si acaso, ¿eh?
Dale nomás, dale nomás.
Okay.
Yo voy a dar la bienvenida, me voy a tomar la libertad de hablar en español al comienzo, solo para darle la bienvenida a todos los que se vayan sumando.
So he's just going to say the welcomes to the people while they join, Nicole. So it's going to take us a couple of minutes. We already have 40 people. It's increasing quite fast. 50.
Sí.
Yeah, we had a lot of people on the queue.
De golpe, bienvenidos. Acabamos de abrir el seminario, había harta gente en lista de espera. Ingresaron de golpe casi 100 personas, así que parece que iba subiendo cada segundo. Así que no voy a leer los nombres como acostumbramos en los seminarios del Centro Industria 4.0. Me voy a saltar directamente a hacer las primeras introducciones, mientras damos los pequeños minutos para comenzar. Ya son las 6:02. Así que bueno, quiero partir presentándome. Mi nombre es Benjamín Germani, soy gerente del Centro para la Industria 4.0, un centro tecnológico perteneciente a la Universidad de Concepción, a la Facultad de Ingeniería. Les doy a todos la más cordial bienvenida a este cuarto y último seminario o webinar, ¿no es cierto?, como está de moda, seminario web del Centro de Industria 4.0 y de la Facultad de Ingeniería, donde la verdad es que tenemos invitados de lujo. Vamos a conversar y tener un cierre como corresponde, con una conversación muy interesante con Nicole, y por supuesto con Paulina, que nos acompaña desde el Ministerio de Ciencia, Tecnología, Conocimiento e Innovación. Vamos a hacer todas las introducciones que corresponden, pero solo ahora que ya casi se duplicaron las personas que me estaban escuchando cuando empecé a hablar, para que vean más o menos cómo crece esto tan rápido. Quiero hacer las primeras apreciaciones de rigor. Yo estoy hablando en español en este momento, pero cuando Paulina tome la palabra, vamos a cambiar a inglés, por supuesto, por ser el idioma de Nicole, para que ella esté cómoda y pueda obviamente expresar con absoluta confianza todo lo que nos quiere contar. Y les quiero comentar a todos los que asisten y los que están mirando este webinar, que pueden abajo en el botón que dice chat, pueden escribir, pueden conversar con los otros asistentes, nos pueden contar en estos minutos que estamos esperando desde dónde se conectan, desde dónde nos acompañan en esta tarde, y también si es que a lo largo de la conversación surgen preguntas, surgen inquietudes, porque todos queremos hacerles preguntas a Nicole ahí en su experiencia en el espacio, lo pueden hacer en el panel que también está en la barra de abajo de la plataforma Zoom, donde dice preguntas y respuestas. Ustedes dejan su pregunta ahí y al final, en el momento en que Paulina vaya armando la conversación, va a ir tomando de estas preguntas y las va a ir haciendo para poder tratar de responderles a todos, pero la verdad es que ya con 3 dígitos de asistente va a ser bastante movido y va a ser difícil seguramente contestar absolutamente todas las inquietudes. Nos saludan ya algunos, eternos, ¿no es cierto?, vinculados a los seminarios del Centro de Industria 4.0. Está Luciano de Satellogic de Argentina. Bienvenido, Luciano, nos acompañó en el webinar anterior. Nos hablan desde Santiago, Etienne, bienvenido también. Va a quedar grabado, nos pregunta Martina. Correcto, va a quedar grabado. De hecho, va a ser transmitido también y va a quedar grabado y va a estar después disponible en la página web de newspace.cl, donde por supuesto también vamos a agregar los subtítulos correspondientes para que ya los que no hablan inglés o que quizás se les haga un poco más complejo puedan observar y mirar todo esto en detalle. Saludos desde Panamá, desde la Asociación Chilena del Espacio, nos dice Héctor, también Héctor nos ha acompañado ya varias veces, desde la Chile, desde los Andes, saludos a los panelistas. ¿Quién más? A ver, bueno, desde Santiago, desde Lampa, feliz de estar acá, bienvenido Samuel. Bueno, en realidad ya están llegando demasiados comentarios, así que no voy a poder leer todo, nos hablan de la USACH, alumno del profesor Alejandro, bienvenido Carlos, ahí, tu profesor ahí de panelista. No quiero dejar mucho correr más el tiempo, quiero que ya cambiemos de idioma, solamente agradecerles a todos los que nos acompañan, a todos ustedes por estar con nosotros esta tarde. Este es el cuarto y último webinar del centro de este ciclo New Space. Ha sido una jornada y un viaje bien entretenido en realidad, un tema muy interesante, una industria que a veces parece muy lejana, pero que la verdad es que está muy cerca, que tiene tremendas oportunidades para la ingeniería y para la ciencia nacional, y que Chile tiene una posición privilegiada. Probablemente Paulina va a entrar ahí en ese detalle, y yo creo que ya estamos a tiempo, Alejandro, de que presentes a nuestra Seremi, a Paulina que nos acompaña, y a Nicole con sus debidas credenciales, y que le demos inicio ya al seminario. ¿Te parece, Alejandro?
Sí, gracias Benjamín. Voy a decir las últimas palabras que nos quedan en castellano, después nos vamos a pasar a inglés. Creo que todos estamos haciendo una bienvenida. Estamos con asistencia récord. Tenemos 130 personas conectadas ahora y sigue subiendo. Preguntaron si íbamos a transmitir, si lo vamos a retransmitir, pero nos gusta y tenemos la suerte de estar con Nicole hoy día, que nos da un cierre con un alto valor simbólico, que es un poco lo que hemos conversado desde el webinar 1 y lo conversábamos con Benjamín Maturana del Ministerio de Ciencia también en su minuto, el valor simbólico del espacio para poder llevar y motivar a los equipos a trabajar en conjuntos tremendos. Hoy en día tenemos a dos mujeres sumamente potentes, Paulina, que es astrofísica, doctora, y Seremi de Ciencia de la Macrozona Centro-Sur, y Nicole, que bueno, la mayoría ya sabe que es una astronauta, pero tiene bastantes aspectos más que vamos a ir descubriendo a lo largo de la conversación. Como no soy el centro de la película, con esto le quiero dar el paso a Paulina para que pueda ir manejando la conversación de hoy día. Gracias.
Hola Alejandro, hola Benjamín, hola a todos los participantes. Quiero agradecer la invitación a esta conversación, que es un cierre de un ciclo de webinars que ha organizado este Centro para la Industria 4.0 y que se han presentado distintos temas de interés de innovación espacial, como por ejemplo la semana pasada, que fue cómo llevar y operar bisegmento espacial, o sea, hablando de cosas súper interesantes. Y bueno, hoy me han invitado a moderar el último webinar de este ciclo con una tremenda invitada, que es una astronauta, Nicole, Stott. Welcome to Chile, to our country. And I would like to, now I will move to English.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so I will do a little summary of your exploits. So Nicole has explored from the height of the outer space to the depth of our oceans. A veteran NASA astronaut, her experience includes 2 spaceflights and 104 days living and working in space on both the Space Shuttle and the International Space Station. So she performed 1 spacewalk, was the first person to fly the robotic arm to capture the free-flying HGV cargo vehicle. She was the last crew member to fly to and from their ISS mission on the Space Shuttle. And she was a member of the crew of the final flight of the Space Shuttle Discovery, STS-133. So, but the personal highlights of Nicole's spaceflight was the painting the first watercolor in space, and we will ask more about this. And Nicole is also the NASA astronaut who, in preparation for the spaceflight and along with her Nemo 9 crew, lived and working during an 18-day and longest saturation mission to the date on the Aquarius undersea habitat. So, as an artist and now retired from NASA, Nicole combines her artwork and spaceflight experience to inspire creative thinking about solutions to our planetary challenge to raise awareness of the surprising interplay between science and art, and to promote the amazing work being done every day in space to improve life right here on Earth. She is the founder of the Space for Art Foundation. Wow. Wow. So I'm very happy to have the opportunity for this talk. Nicole, please, thank you. So tell me. So when did you decide to become an astronaut? So this is something
wow. I think, you know, it came actually, it came later in life, actually. I had, of course, well, I grew up, I don't know, with parents who shared what they loved with me. I learned to fly very young. I developed a love of flying and wanting to know how things fly. I also had the opportunity as a young child to watch that first moon landing. So that was, you know, certainly inspirational. But it really, it wasn't until much later, I would say probably 9 into the 10 years of working as a NASA engineer at Kennedy Space Center, where I started, I don't know, seeing astronauts and what they do when they're not flying in space. And, you know, sadly, over 99% of an astronaut's job is here on Earth. It's not flying in space. And I discovered that a lot of it was a lot like what I was already doing as an engineer. And I started thinking about it, you know, in a way that it might be possible. Because up till then, I always thought, oh, astronaut, that's something other special people get to do. Why would they ever pick me to do that job? And I think having the chance to see what astronauts really are all about made me a little bit more confident to even apply, to try. And then I think the thing that really kicked me into it was having people that I considered to be mentors encourage me, like, to pick up the pen and fill out the application. I don't think I would have pursued it on my own otherwise. I just would have always self-doubted myself right out of it.
And how long take to when you decide to apply, to fill the forms, and when you just make the first flight, for example? Wow.
So I was very fortunate. The first time I applied, I got an interview. So I went and interviewed, and, you know, the whole time I was still thinking, oh, no way, they won't pick me, you know, just enjoy this. This is cool. And they didn't. So they didn't pick me that first time, but they offered me a job at the Johnson Space Center, flying as a flight engineer on the shuttle training aircraft. So that was the airplane that NASA used to train astronauts to land the space shuttle. So I got to fly, help train astronauts to land the space shuttle. You know, I did that for 2 years, and then I interviewed again, and I was selected into the class of 2000. And then my first flight was in 2009. I actually was in space 11 years ago today on STS-128 mission. Yeah. So, yeah, the mission is going on right now. And, but when I was first selected, we were told it would be 3 to 5 years before you would get your first space flight. And sadly, we had the Columbia accident in 2003. So that, you know, flying stopped for a little while we figured out what went wrong. And for my class and the class before me and after me, it was about, 9 to 10 years before your first space flight. Yeah, it was worth the wait, though.
Yeah, so before to go in your first trip, you have a lot of work to training for that, right? So when I read your introduction, so how did your mission to Aquarius Underwater Lab help prepare for your space flight?
Wow, you know, I'll tell you, we do a lot of training, like you said. I mean, it's everything from language training to speak Russian, you know, to become semi-fluent in Russian, to all the systems on the space station and how to fly the robotic arm, how to do spacewalks, about the science, all of those kinds of things. And in all of that, we're learning, I don't know, we're training how to work as a crew, to work together as a crew, you know, on a mission. But I'll tell you, the absolute best, like overall training to prepare to go and live in space on the space station was to go live underwater on that undersea habitat. And I think it's because we were down there for 18 days, and we were doing a real mission. We had real science we were doing. Any dive, you know, exploration that we did was associated with some strategic goal that NASA had for space exploration. And we were in a real extreme environment, right? So 60 feet underwater, living in this habitat that's the size of a school bus, you know, about the size of one of the space station modules, 6 of us there. And after you were down there for an hour, just like when you scuba dive, you know, your body gets saturated with nitrogen. So after you're down there for an hour, you can't swim safely to the surface, you know, without potentially, you know, killing yourself because of the nitrogen and the bends and all of that. So it was just like being in space. You had to put on special equipment, you know, dive gear to go out and do the dive exploration. We had to behave, you know, as good crew inside of the module. And if something went wrong, we had to figure out how to deal with it right there underwater versus trying to escape to the surface. So you couldn't get any better analog to flying in space than going and living underwater. We kind of joke that you go and you get to live in inner space to learn how to live and work in outer space.
That's great. So 18 days was really
incredible. Yeah. And you learn, it's like going to space. I kind of think about it like when you go to space, you get this experience of Earth, like you're kind of surrounding the planet. You know, you're looking at it in this, you know, from this really unique perspective. And the same is true when you go live underwater. It's like now, you know, the underwater, it's like the Earth is surrounding you. And it becomes, I don't know, I think we all need to find these ways to, you know, to experience our planet, you know, from these different perspectives. You don't have to go underwater, you don't have to go to space, but to just really look around us and appreciate, you know, this place that we live. Yeah. So that's inside the habitat. That's sitting at the galley table inside of Aquarius.
Okay. I would like to move because there is some question for the people in the webinar. And for example, Etienne asked if you grew in a height when you were in space.
Yeah, so that's kind of fun. You know, there's all these things that happen to your body when you go to space and you're in this microgravity environment, right? And one of them is that because you don't have the load of gravity here on Earth on your body, your spine elongates, it stretches out, and so you grow. And my spine stretched about 1.5 inches, and that happens very quickly, like within the first day. And you feel it. I mean, you feel you get like this lower back pain for the first day or so. I remember that on my first mission. And it takes a little while to get comfortable, and then once you're used to it, you're fine. But then when you come home, and it goes right back to where it was very, very quickly.
Yeah. So you have a family, right? You have a kid?
I do. So... I do. I have a husband who is my connection to you guys through the International Space University. And I have a son who is now 18 years old. He was 7 when I flew the first time to space.
And how was his impression when Mama was in the outer space?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, I think he had all kinds of feelings about it, I think. And, you know, in one way it was like, wow, this is really cool. My mom's in space, you know, and I did a couple video conferences with his classroom, you know, and so, you know, so that worked to his advantage. But then I think like any parent with any job, when you're not there, you know, your kid wants you to be there, and actually you want to be where your child is too. So that honestly was probably the hardest part of it all for me, was that separation. Yeah.
Yeah. And there is some, I'm very curious. I will ask your question, guys, but I'm very curious about something because you said about the experience you pay to paint in outer space, because we see the water flew and the paint. So how did it work? How you can paint with water?
Well, you know, it was really fun, and I wish I would have taken a video of the whole process. I think it would have been very interesting for people. It would have been good for me to be able to remember it that way too. But it was, yeah, you know, in microgravity, everything floats, like you said. One of the hardest things about living in microgravity is just keeping track of your stuff. You know, if you let go of something, you know, ideally it would just float right there and stay there, but we've got ventilation, so it moves, and, you know, if you aren't keeping track of it, it's gone. So I had to be very organized when I did it. I had to, you know, have my paint kit and everything just set and ready. And then of course, you know, you don't dip your brush into a cup of water, because there are no cups of water. So you squirt, I remember we had these drink bags. They're like little aluminum bags with straws at the end. And I would squirt out a tiny little ball of water and then just take the brush and dip it into this tiny little ball of water. And it was very cool because, I mean, you're a scientist, you understand how things behave differently. And it was like the little ball of water was there, and I'd take the brush, and right before the brush would actually touch the ball of water, it's like the water wanted to move onto the end of the brush. And then the same thing when I took the little ball of water down to the paint, it's like it wanted to move over to the paint, and then the colored water back to the brush. And I don't know if that was, you know, to do with some like mysterious static, you know, kind of charge thing, or if it was because of surface tension or what it was, but it was like this little ball of water, like was so intriguing to me because it behaved so differently. And then of course with painting, because we're traveling at 17,500 miles an hour, or about 5 miles a second around the planet.
So you were not looking through the window.
So, no. So you're not like
impossible.
No, you know. So I had to print out a picture because, you know, before you could even get the brush to the paper, what you would be looking at would be gone. So I printed out a picture, actually, of what turned out to my favorite picture, which was, and some of you might know this beautiful place on the northern coast of Venezuela called Las Rocas. There we go. And a tiny little chain of islands, just gorgeous. And I remember seeing that through the window and thinking, like, wow, you know, it looks like somebody had reached down with a paintbrush and painted a wave on the ocean. And so that just stood out in my mind, and I wanted to paint it. And so that's what I painted. And to this day, it's my favorite picture that I took from space, and it's inspired a lot of the other artwork I've done. But that, you know, that one piece there, which actually looks pretty childish as far as, you know, art goes, but it was great because it's like, I don't know, it's like putting the human in human space flight, right? You know, it's not just about the work that we're doing there anymore. We live there, and we should be living there and experiencing some of the same things that we enjoy, you know, down here on Earth. And, you know, people play music and paint and draw and sew and, yeah, take pictures. Very nice.
Okay, so, no, but it's interesting that you see part of the Earth and you paint, it looks like a wave, and you paint it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And that tiny little chain of islands, I really would love to go there someday. My family and I travel quite frequently to Bonaire to go scuba diving. And if I understand correctly, I think Las Rocas is it's like about 70 miles east of Bonaire. And so one of these days we will visit there.
Where we can see this painting? Is in your house, or where is?
Well, it's actually on display at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. And there's a print of it on display at a little exhibit here in Tampa, Florida. And I have it on my website and, stuff
everywhere.
Yeah, but yeah, it absolutely is one of my favorite memories because I don't know, it gives me a real, I think, personal connection to the mission, to the time and space. But I think it also, it allows me to connect with people here on Earth that might not even know there is a space station, right? I can talk to them about my artwork. I can, whether they like it or not, I can then share the backstory to it. And then they can know that we have this, amazing facility, that's been in space for over 20 years with human beings from 15 different countries peacefully, successfully working there. And, that it's just such a wonderful model for how we should be living here on Earth. And everything about it is bringing improvement to life on Earth as well. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, there is some question from Catherine Calvo. She asked, how many flights can execute one astronaut in a lifetime?
Well, it depends. I mean, we have certain guidelines about how much radiation exposure you can have. There's it's mostly medical limitations. If your body is already, if you already have some kind of illness or things going on, if you can't see anymore, they don't want to send you. But, we had people that flew on the space shuttle. I think the most was 7 space flights. A couple astronauts that flew 7 space flights on the space shuttle. There are actually a couple crew members who have flown, I think 5 times on the space station, 5 long duration space flights. Gennady Podolka, one of my crewmates, I believe has had 5 missions, the most time ever in space. And then it might not be so much that you fly multiple times, but we have crew members flying, normally 4 to 6 months at a time now on a mission. So you might fly, 4 to 6 months on one flight and then 4 to 6 months on another flight, and that might be all you ever do. It just depends, but most of it has to do with, medical, and then in terms of, how many people we can actually get to and from space, because there's not a lot of flights to even do that. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And there is Miguel Duran. He asked, what was the most difficult or challenging thing you had to deal with when you went to space?
There's a couple things, I guess. On the one hand, just preparing, I kind of joked about learning to speak Russian, right? But I had never, through all of my university, it's why I can't speak Spanish with you today. I somehow got all the way through university without ever learning another language. And then I was 40 years old plus training to fly to space, and I had to learn to speak Russian. That was difficult.
So the Russian language is the challenge.
That was difficult. And then I would say, we talked about it a little bit already, just that going to a place like this, that is going to be really, really special. You train for a long time to do it. And you can't take your family with you. These are never the answers people want to hear. I think they want to hear about challenges, with doing a spacewalk, or challenges with flying the robotic arm or doing the science. Mm-hmm. But we train so much for that kind of thing that it becomes what we want to do. It is, it's just part of the mission. But kind of the human side of it, how do I speak another language? And what's going on with my 7-year-old son on Earth when I can't have him here with me? Those were the challenges for me, I think.
I think, but for example, I found in internet one of your interviews, and you show some phrases like, we live on a planet, we are all Earthlings, and the only border that matters is the thin blue line.
Absolutely. And actually,
I remember because there are many nationalities in ISS.
Yeah. And it's true, isn't it? You know, it's like you just had that picture of the International Space Station up there. And when you think about how we go to space, how we even live and work there for even a short period of time, right? It's really complex to do that. And there's those relationships with all the international partners to be able to work, you know, peacefully to this common mission. That's a complex thing to do too. I mean, there's these levels of the science, all of it is really, really complex. And yet, I think when you speak to astronauts who've experienced this and you ask them really to boil it down, it comes back to the side of it that's really the simplest things. You know, the lessons are the simplest. And, you know, I didn't think about the fact that we live on a planet before I went to space. I do now every day. I'm like, oh my gosh, my feet, I'm walking on a planet. That's, you know, and we need to think about that. We need to be thinking about those things. We need to think about the fact that regardless of where you are in, you know, in Chile or if you're on the other side of the planet somewhere, we are all on this planet together as Earthlings. I mean, it's a simple fact. It's what we all have in common, right? And then all this border stuff that, you know, we bog ourselves down with so much. Man, when you look at it from space, it's like, holy moly. The only one that matters is that blue line that's going around all of us and protecting us and providing us with this environment that allows us to survive. And how is that we can build this mechanical system in space to mimic what Earth does for us naturally, to monitor those systems and take care of it diligently, because we know we have to do that to survive there. And yet we haven't quite figured out how to do that down here yet. And that's, I mean, bottom line, that's what I want people to know from what we're doing in space, is that it all comes back to what's happening here on Earth.
Yeah.
I'm a rambler, sorry. There's no short answer out of me.
No, it's okay. Yeah, it's a very deep thing. And well, there is another question of Diana Campos, and she's asked about in Spanish. So, what the astronaut makes on the International Space Station? So, what are the main activities?
So, you know, one of the things that I love about about being an astronaut right now, it's going to change over time as we have more and more people flying, as we're able to fly more and more people. You know, we'll be able to send the doctor or the plumber or the scientist. But right now, every astronaut is all of those things. So on any given day, you're doing this mix of, you know, science activities in the laboratories there, you're maintaining the space station, perhaps fixing the toilet, you might be doing a spacewalk or flying the robotic arm or communicating with people on the ground, but it's everything that has to happen there. All of the crew members have to be able to do that to some degree. And it makes it, I mean, it's so interesting to have that variety of work and to be implementing the science for the scientists down here on Earth, to be, you know, delivering, you know, the results that they've been working so hard to, you know, to put together. It's really very rewarding, and it's never the same. Every day seems different. And then, of course, mixed in between all of that is the stuff you have to do just as a human being to survive, right? You got to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We exercise 2 hours a day to make sure our bones and our muscles stay strong. And then if an astronaut has free time, you will most likely find them floating in front of a window, you know, photographing or looking at Earth or finding a picture that they want to paint. Yeah.
Okay, there I will move to another question. Tatiana Lopez asked, can you please tell us about the astronaut selection process? How was it? How did you feel going through it? Well, you something you will answer before, but
yeah, it's a very interesting process, and I've had actually, you know, through my career now, I've had the opportunity to sit on the other side of the table. you know, to be the one interviewing people coming through who are interested in becoming astronauts. And there's a picture that I usually show kids when I'm talking to them. It's my astronaut class, and we have these little bug antenna on and these glasses because our class name is the Bugs. And I show it because I want people to understand that there's not like this checklist. You know, like if I do these 5 things, they will pick me to be an astronaut. That doesn't exist. I mean, you have to satisfy, you know, the basic requirements that NASA has, at least from my perspective with NASA, you have to satisfy, you know, certain educational requirements, work experience, and then of course some, you know, basic medical things. But outside of that, what's so cool is that it's really wide open, you know. There's a picture on the screen right now where there's 4 people in the picture, and those 4 people we're all in the same class, and we ended up in space together on this first mission. And that picture was actually taken like 11 years ago yesterday. And and those 4 people we're all in the same class. But if you look in that picture, I'm an aeronautical engineer, and I worked for NASA as an engineer. Kevin Ford, who's to my left, he's an Air Force fighter and test pilot. Mike Barrett in the blue shirt, flight surgeon, medical doctor. And then I believe we have Tim Copra down there, the blonde in the front, is an Army helicopter pilot and engineer. So all of 4 of us with these different backgrounds, right? And in my class, we had oceanographer and geophysicist and a biologist and a submariner, and then across all those people, you know, painting, music, race car driving, rock climbing, house building, all of these different backgrounds too. And I really think the key is studying something you enjoy, first of all, working in an area that you really enjoy and could see yourself do for a long time, and then having activities outside of work and school that demonstrate that you understand how what you're studying applies to solving challenging problems in real life. And, you know, and that you could work together as a team, that you might be somebody would want to spend 6 months with inside of a relatively small spaceship.
I have another question from Claudia Solis. She asked, it's hard for women to become an astronaut? Or there is any difference for example, in a training?
You know, there's no difference in the training, absolutely none. And I always like to, especially to young girls who are questioning, just like I did, why would they ever pick me? Why should I even try to do that? I just like to say that, you know, the rocket ship doesn't care if you're a boy or girl, right? Doesn't care. And so all of the training that goes along with that, even when it's, you know, spacewalking in one of those big suits and everything, it's the same exact thing, whether you're a man or a woman. Over time, you know, NASA has done a really good job, I think, with recognizing that there are more and more women out there that qualify for this job. And like in my class, we had 2 of the 17 people selected were women, or no, I'm sorry, 3. But now in the NASA astronaut office, I think there's about 40 or so total astronauts, and roughly 40% are women.
Oh.
That's huge. That's huge. Especially when you think that at most engineering colleges, I don't know how it is there in Chile, but in the US right now, engineering schools struggle to have like 20-25% female enrollment. And then the finishing, you know, actually graduating is even lower. And so we need to be getting to our girls younger. You know, you and I need to be out there as the example for them, you know, to be present and show them that, hey, you know, this thing that I think is impossible can really happen for me. And I think girls are more, they need to see it. You know, my son, he just wanted to know, is that a cool thing that I might want to do? He didn't care if it was a man or woman that he was seeing doing it. But I think girls need to see women doing these challenging things.
Well, actually, in Chile, it's not so different from US, and we are our ministry is working very hard on that. to improve how the instrument to improve the women's can be, if she wants to go for science, just do it. So yeah. we are working on that.
Good.
And now other question is, how was the space shuttle program contribute to the future of the space exploration?
Wow, I am a huge fan of the space shuttle program. I wish we were still flying, honestly. I think that one of the things that I really love about the success of the space shuttle program is that when you think about it, how many design projects, especially when you're going to build something and you get all these requirements, right? How many things are really successful when you get requirements? Everybody wants it to do everything. Mm-hmm. Usually something isn't done all that well. The space shuttle, I think, was an example of a spaceship, a space transportation system that it flew astronauts well. It helped us service and repair satellites and build space stations. It allowed us to do science in space before we had a space station. It transported cargo. I mean, all of those things. It did really, really well. And then it landed on a runway. And I don't know, I just feel like that's the way human beings should come home from space. There should be that little chirp on the runway. But I think it was this really wonderful model of how certain aspects of your spacecraft can and should be reusable. The just kind of diverse things that we can do in space if we want to. We can go really high up and service a Hubble Space Telescope. We can stay in low Earth orbit and build and operate a space station. We can build other spacecraft because of that will take us back to the moon, that will take us on to Mars. And all of it, I think, has just set in motion, this understanding of the rocket science as well, Yeah.
So, and I have more questions and I have first questions, but okay. Well, but I will go to the question of so what advice would you give Chile to grow in scientific fields? I don't know.
Well, I think it's true I think it would be true everywhere, really, is I think where we need to be looking and kind of pushing in our scientific areas is to say, okay, it kind of goes back to that planet Earthling thin blue line thing, right? Okay, we live on this planet. We're behaving in certain ways that might not be so good for our life support system here on Earth, right? What can we do through science and technology and engineering that can help us, remediate some of that? How do we solve the really challenging problems that we have as human beings here on the planet too? And I think that's where really cool science falls out. And that's where I personally believe people get excited about wanting to study science then if they know that they're really and truly going to have an impact that can improve life on Earth for everyone.
Yeah, indeed. Yes. I have here a practical question. Matias Cuevas, how do you sleep in the space with the microgravity? This does not sound very comfortable.
It is absolutely the best sleep I have ever had in my entire life. So good. Now, we had the question earlier about your spine elongating, right? About growing in space. And I told you that for that first day or so, your lower back kind of hurts. Because of that, because you can't stretch. It's already stretched. You can't stretch out now, to make it feel better. So sleeping the first couple days was a little bit uncomfortable. But after that goes away, I mean, we would sleep in sleeping bags, right? You could stick that anywhere you wanted, on the ceiling, on the floor, because there's no up or down. So you can put your sleeping bag anywhere. On the space shuttle, I would always stick it up on what you would think of as the ceiling, because where else can you sleep on your ceiling except in space, And then I know, and then on the space station, we each have our own private crew compartment. And it's just a little kind of a box about the size of an old phone booth, maybe. and the perfect amount of space. I mean, you can stick your sleeping bag up on the wall. And I just remember every night floating into it, you know, zipping it up, you find your comfortable position. And then when I turned the light out, within 5 minutes, I was asleep. And I didn't wake up until, yep, there's clay in a sleeping bag. And I didn't wake up until the alarm went off. You know, either the alarm, and we had several in the middle of the night, you know, emergency alarms go off, or the alarm I'd set on my watch to wake me up in the morning. I just slept straight through. And that does not happen to me down here on Earth very often.
So it seems that the Velcro was a very good friend.
The Velcro is definitely your friend in space. It's definitely your friend in space. Yeah. Yes.
So, now, Paulina Bloomer asked, when you returned to Earth, did you feel different in many ways? So how did you feel, I think?
Yeah, well, I think one side of that is the feeling like that we discussed about just emotionally, you know, kind of spiritually, you know, just the feeling of it that way about, you know, this consideration of who and where we are already all in space together, right, on this planet. I mean, there's that side of it. But the other side, maybe what she's getting at, is you feel really, really heavy.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter who you are. When you come back from space, you're like, oh my gosh, like my head feels
really
heavy. Like you have to think about holding your head up, and you know, you didn't have to do that in space.
Yes, but did you lose weight into space or no?
Well, I lost a little weight right off the bat because I had put some weight on in crew quarters waiting to fly, but they don't really want you losing weight in space. They want you to maintain, you know, your muscle mass, and you know, and they want you to exercise, which we did for 2 hours each day to counteract that really accelerated bone and muscle loss that can happen in microgravity. Because, I mean, if you think about it, our brains and our bodies they're these wonderful machines. I mean, they take the input, you know, this environment that you're in, and they're like, huh, you know, I'm floating. I don't need bones or muscles to survive here, right? So very quickly, it stops maintaining them for you. Why waste energy on building bone if I don't need that to move in microgravity? So we have to counteract that with the exercise that we do, and it's very effective. But I'll say the coming home, just like getting to space, everybody reacts a little bit differently. There's nothing about how you react to flying in an airplane or out on a boat, you know, motion sickness here on Earth that will really tell you about how you'll respond to getting to space or coming home. But the common thing is that you just feel really, really heavy for a while. Like the bottom half of your leg weighs 100 pounds. I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna, like, how do you move?
So gee.
Yeah. So it's, you know, when we talk about, you know, we all kind of joke about, oh, you know, when you're sitting at your desk all day, you need to get up and move around, and it's really good for you to get off the couch and take a walk. I mean, it is, because we don't understand how much work we're doing, I don't think, just to move our bodies around in this, you know, gravity world that we live in. Yeah.
Yeah. No, another question from Gabriel Cifuentes is, I read about NASA is looking for new astronauts to be in Mars mission. What we can do to join or postulate to apply, and what are the requirements for, in the case for foreign, in this, the Chilean engineer?
Yeah. Well, you know, at this point, it's really kind of a bummer because, you know, in order to be selected by NASA, you have to be a U.S. citizen, right? So I really love that, you know, within Chile, like through these programs, like you're having this new space idea to really start engaging, you know, Chilean businesses and students, you know, into this idea that we need to have a space program.
Space program.
You know, I mean, and it totally can happen. It's not unreasonable, right? And then to look at partnerships with the countries like the US and Russia that are already flying human beings in space, I think that's important as well. I mean, that's where the success of the International Space Station has come from. It's why so many European astronauts, Japanese astronauts, you know, Canadian can get to and from the space station is because of that partnership. So that's something to consider as well. Don't necessarily have to have your own spaceship, your own rocket ship, right? If you can partner with others that do. So I would encourage that. But I would say as students that are, you know, just even considering this, I mean, you can go and you can look at the NASA website to see what the basic requirements are there. You could go and look at the ESA and JAXA and CSA websites as well to see, you will see some common things and, you know, try to understand what those things are. But ultimately, you really have to follow your heart and you have to study something that, I don't know, that you're excited about, that you're curious about. Because I can tell you when you're sitting on the other side of the table wanting to select people to be astronauts, you want to get a sense of that other person's excitement. You want to know that they really get that being an astronaut can extend on what they're already excited about. Yeah.
So, passion.
Yeah. It's true. It really is true. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Now other question, Mark Anthony Babbitt say, what do you think about SpaceX Dragon spacecraft and what impact do you see Starship making in their space industry? So about SpaceX.
Yeah, so very excited about all of that. I think we're at this place where we have this, you know, government and private partnership going on that is really allowing things in the private side to accelerate, you know, to satisfy some of the requirements we have so that the government stuff can go look, you know, even further out. How can we develop the tech to get even further out? I have a special fondness for the recent crewed Dragon mission because those two guys, Bob and Doug, were in my class as well, in my astronaut class. And so it's kind of like, you know, felt like I was watching family, you know, fly on that mission. And if people don't already know, both of them, their wives, Karen and Megan, those were the other two women in my class. So we all were part of the same astronaut class. In addition to those people I showed you, you know, in that picture from earlier. I think it's just, you know, we're at this very like early stage, right? Where I have this feeling that one day we're going to wake up and we're going to be like, holy moly, how did we get from flying Bob and Doug on a Dragon to the multiple flights that we're doing on different spacecraft and, you know, multiple companies and, you know, and more countries involved with humans traveling, you know, further and further from our planet, as well as occupying this low Earth orbit and perhaps, you know, lunar environment. And the Starship, I think, is just going to be one piece in that, you know, that bigger puzzle of how humanity kind of spreads itself out.
Yeah. Different options and different things. And there is a question here. There, I think it's from curious. So Roger said, "Hi, Nicole and Paulina. How female astronauts deal with menstruation in space?"
Not a problem. Absolutely not a problem. In fact, I went the first time and, you know, took pills to suppress it, to keep it from happening.
Yeah.
And I wish I wouldn't have. It was because on my second flight I didn't. It was just, it's just, I think in some ways, I think we try to convince ourselves that, oh, I'm in space, I'm in microgravity, everything's going to be more difficult. And that's not true. Everything is just a little bit different. And it's all part, just, I think, of the adventure of being in there. And then we figure out how to manage it. All works great.
Great. So, and what about number 1 and 2?
Classic. That question. So I always joke that, you know, potty ops in space, it's all about the vacuum, right? Everything about space is about the vacuum. And so number 1, big long hose with a yellow funnel on the end of it. You turn on a switch and this vacuum, you know, will pull the urine through the hose and then it goes into our recycling system. Number 2, a lot like camping.
Okay.
You know, collected in a can, you know, when the can is full, the lid goes on it, and then it's disposed of in one of our cargo vehicles that burns up in the atmosphere. And that's for the space station, you know, right now. I know they're looking at all different kinds of methods for managing, you know, human waste as we're going to Mars or when we go back to the moon and are there more permanently. How can we better take advantage of that waste as either a resource or a way, you know, better ways, more, I don't know, efficient ways to dispose of it.
Great. And so this is my question. What about, for example, when you see the movie Gravity and you see the astronauts fixing things, and it's like really like this or not?
Well, you know, I kind of...
George Clooney singing.
Yeah. Everything George Clooney did in that movie is nothing you would ever see happen in real life. But I try to watch those movies with a little, you know, I try to temper myself because I think in any profession, when you watch a movie about it, there's always this, you're like, oh, no, they would never do that way. You know, like I watched that movie in particular, I watched it, I'm like, you can't fly in a straight line from one spaceship to another, you know, all the space stations aren't lined up in space. I mean, all those kinds of things. And even the storyline where the station and the shuttle broke up that way is very exaggerated, I think. But the graphics, the graphics in that movie, extraordinary. I mean, I remember watching it and thinking, oh my gosh, because I had done a spacewalk, and so they're showing all these scenes of the outside of the space station and the way they were moving. I'm like, oh my God, I got goosebumps because I'm like, that's what the light on the side of the space station looked like. That's when Sandra Bullock is moving through all the different places and stuff, that it really felt like what I remember experiencing. The story, not so much. The visuals, really good.
Really good. Yeah, it seems that you have the mission and you have time to do it.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I see. Well, it seems that the time flies.
Yes, it does.
It's just 4 minutes. And let's see, there is here a teenager, 16 years old. And he said, I'm from Chile. I'm Matilde. I'm from Chile, and I really want to be an astronaut. I believe that the space exploration gives us as humanity an important cultural and intellectual revolution that is now necessary to develop solutions to the present, for the present and the future. What can I do to start on this path, and she will be able to achieve it? Well,
I'll tell you, you know, we've talked about it a little bit, but I love there's already the
women,
right? There's already excitement for it, right? And I think you said 16, so she's gotten past that point where she would have said, oh no, I shouldn't do that. You got to keep it's the curiosity, I think. You got to keep, I don't know, just being excited about solving those problems you're talking about and finding your place in how, you know, you can be a part of that. And, you know, of course, for the astronaut world right now, you know, you need to study something that's, you know, sciencey or engineering or, you know, at this point, but that's going to continue to open up more and more too, you know, to these different disciplines that we'll need. But like we said before, you really, really have to be excited about it and want to pursue it, because that energy will come out when you're, you know, looking for different opportunities, and more opportunities, I think, will open up when you have that level of interest in something. You know, you end up meeting people, you know, like Paulina, how would we ever have met before? I don't know, but this, you know, we're coming together for some reason here, you know, not just to do this session, but we'll have this connection from here on out that hopefully can, you know, bring even more positive things from it, right? And I think that's what we all just need to be looking at, whether you want to be an astronaut or not.
Yeah. Thank you, Nicole. I would like to finish with the last minute. If you want to say something to the Chilean public, or I don't know, if you want to add something.
Well, I mean, I think I just want to share my excitement for this interest in space and space exploration that seems to be growing. I think, you know, I work in, this is a little bit of a detour, but I work with kids in hospitals all over the world and refugee centers. We do these art projects, right? And we're working with these children who are, I mean, it's a very challenging situation for them. You know, a lot of them are in pediatric cancer centers and stuff. But you take space exploration into those environments, and it's amazing how these kids become stronger. They are thinking about their future. And I think that's true for everyone. I mean, space exploration as a business, as an opportunity for, you know, for a country to be involved with and to develop and bring back that technology to Earth to improve life here on Earth as well. I think there's such inspiration in it that I'm just really happy that Chile is pursuing it that way, both from, you know, like the university level, but as, you know, as like through the new space and, you know, other commercial activities too, to energize that excitement about space exploration and what it can do for, you know, humanity back here on Earth.
Okay, I think the time is over. So I would like to say thank you. More than 63 questions that I couldn't ask everything. We should something, but thank you very much for your time, and I hope to see you again soon.
You are very welcome. And I'll tell you what, check out, you know, for anybody that has kids, check out the Space for Art Foundation website. We would love to have some kids from Chile participate in our Beyond Spacesuit Art project.
Excellent.
Excellent. Thanks, you guys.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Bueno, chicos, los dejo ahora. A ustedes, Alejandro, Benjamín.
So, yeah, thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Paulina. Muchas gracias. We had a record audience today, and we had really a lot of questions. That's good. We wanted to have inspiration, and I'm going to switch a little bit to Spanish to close, but uno de los ejemplos que Nicole daba, y hablaba del transbordador espacial, de lo complejo y todo lo que fue el manejo de distintos requerimientos para poder terminar con una plataforma que terminó sirviendo para hacer muchas cosas. Cómo hay que estar emocionado e inspirado por lo que uno hace para atacar y resolver los problemas complejos que nos afectan en la Tierra. La Facultad de Ingeniería de la Universidad de Concepción, su eslogan es el origen de las grandes soluciones, y un poco lo que vamos tratando es entrar a estas soluciones de problemas globales. Al ir al espacio uno ve el mundo. Y Nicole lo dijo, se conoce como el overview effect también. Y con eso, en realidad, agradecer a todos, agradecer a Bernd, que nos ayudó a poder contactar a Nicole, agradecer a Paulina, agradecer a Benjamín, agradecer a toda la audiencia que estuvo fiel y creciendo en cada uno de los webinars. So, with that, I would say thank you all, and we're done. We're done for the webinars this year. We're going all on holidays. And,
well,
till the next time.
Thank you very much, Nicole.
Okay.
Thanks, you guys.
Bye-bye.
All right. See ya.
Gracias, Paulina. Nos vemos. Muchas gracias a todos los asistentes. Despedimos a nuestros expositores, a Paulina que nos acompañó moderando. Y bueno, este es el último del ciclo New Space, pero la verdad es que con Alejandro y con todo el equipo vamos a seguir en el futuro empujando el tema de New Space, así que los dejamos a todos invitados a visitar la página www.newspace.cl. Ahí está toda la información del evento del año pasado, está toda la información del evento, por supuesto, de los webinars de este año. Así que la invitación es esa, sigan conectados con el Centro para la Industria 4.0, todos los vínculos ahí con la facultad, con la industria, para poder hacer implementación tecnológica, proyectos de emprendimiento que tengan necesidades de fabricación. Tenemos herramientas para hacer prototipaje industrial, fabricación electrónica. Hay un montón de implementos para acercarse a este mundo y para acercar la tecnología a la sociedad chilena que tanto lo necesita. Así que muchas gracias a todos los asistentes y nos vamos a ver próximamente. Thank you very much, Nicole, again, and I hope to see you soon again.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thanks.